This is my third take of this recording. The first one was scrapped due to my mic malfunctioning and muting itself when I was recording. And the second was due to external distractions. So I will attempt to start off this this recording, the way I did with the first one. Perhaps you've seen videos like this, or perhaps you haven't, but sometimes, or again, to you, maybe most times that you've seen me, I speak of self talk, of positive talk, more specifically on the note of self talk. I talk of, being fit, pushing yourself, being productive, to be positive. And recently I had an argument with my brother. And in this argument, he could not fulfill something, and he said that he implied or said that he could do it later, right? And when he was unable to do so, I felt upset, and I acknowledged that. Afterwards, I went downstairs and I told him that I was feeling upset and came and told him that I came to the decision of, you know, not following through with the rest of what we discussed, right? And I won't go into detail about it, but I suppose to really give an accurate, more detailed explanation of this argument, and the decision or choice in question of what he was going to do, the description in question, it would be to I wanted to eat something this morning. I wanted to eat something this morning or order something this morning, and I asked him if he wanted anything. I asked him if he wanted me to order anything for him, when I placed my order for something small. And then he implied or said, because I can't remember which one right now, that he would take care of it shortly because he was going to be napping for, an hour or so. And I said, all right, I'll wait. And I waited and I waited and I waited, eventually losing track of time. And time came by where, well, breakfast could no longer be served. And I was quite upset. I was irritated. I was frustrated. I was agitated. One might say unreasonably so, one might say reasonably. Either way, I was upset. So I went downstairs and I argued with him about it. And I told him that, I wouldn't be eating for the rest of the day because I couldn't eat breakfast today. And it was either before that or after that in which I told him that I was not trying to make him feel guilty. I was not, and I still stand by that because it is how it is. I wasn't trying to make him feel guilty. I was just, for lack of a better term, describing my frustrations. And I'm not very good at describing things, especially scenarios, especially things in great detail. Whether that be due to the fact that I have autism, ADHD, and it's just a natural thing that I have to live with, no matter how much I iron it out or what. It doesn't matter. But regardless, he and I argued over that, and eventually he got to a point where he was like, you know what? I don't know if like his body language. By the way, I guess he didn't say this obviously, but his body language to me implied that he didn't quite believe me when I said I wasn't trying to guilt him. His tone also contributed to that, and I was so angry in that moment internally. I just so frustrated. And I so badly wanted to argue with him on that seemingly to me unjust accusation. Or rather, maybe not unjust, but unfair. Perhaps even not even unfair but unreasonable, right? And I don't even know if unreasonable fits that bill, but regardless, I wanted to argue over that, right? That invisible or floating accusation in the air. And I decided, you know what? Stop, Dylan. And I paused. I paused in that line of thought and that line of speech. And I don't quite remember if I said something else or if I had just paused and let him continue speaking. But regardless, internally, I was having a discussion with myself and a discussion with him. And internally, I said, Dylan, don't lash out in agitation. Don't lash out in anger. Don't try to argue to him your stance of not wanting to guilt him, right? Of it not being that way objectively, right? Or not even objectively, but in general. Just just listen to him, walk away. Listen to him and walk away. And I did. I did. I listened to him. I heard him out, right? I took his words. And once he was done speaking, I made my way upstairs. And I just wanted to punch a wall multiple times. And it was so, I was so angry that I wanted to cry. Not out of sadness, but just out of some sort of invisible, unknown grief. And recently I've been feeling he, I have been a total fuck up of a brother, I suppose, subconsciously, without my knowing, in the forefront of my mind. Just telling myself, hey, Dylan, every time Bryce comes to you and gives you some sort of information or wants to speak with you, and just in general, he makes a point, a claim, or says something, and you see that as wrong, or you want to argue over it for some reason. And because of that, he doesn't want to talk to you, right? Conversation is strained, and I fucking hate it. It's like just really thinking about it now. It just eats at me, and it's not something that I can't manage. Much like the fact that it's not impossible for me to manage talking to almost no one each and every day or every other day or no matter, regardless, having little social interaction. It's not like it's impossible to manage because it isn't. It very much so isn't impossible to manage being detached, for a lack of a better term. So I put on my shoes, went outside, and I resorted to doing that instead of, the ugly alternative, which was punching holes in the wall or going back downstairs to argue. And I just let out my anger, my frustration that way, talking to myself, being like, Dylan, you have gone so far in so little time with how you think, with how you operate. God has given you this mind of yours, has allowed you to develop the way that you are, that you can. So be reasonable, try to be understanding, try to learn more, try to understand people, and just it builds up to a point where it's like, why the fuck was I even angry? it just builds up to that point. And going back, or rather forward, I suppose, in the context of the story, going inside, getting inside the house, right, and then finally making my way to my computer. Perhaps it was before that. I think about what a very popular YouTuber said. If you want someone to look to for answers, and this is expanding on his quote, but for answers, for guidance, for light, then look to God. And thinking about that, thinking about what he said, that powerful quote, it just didn't seem to nail home the point to me for others, or rather, when I was considering others. And so I thought about it and I said, if I, or perhaps anyone else, needed to look to someone for any sort of answer, positivity, anything at all, right? But mainly for answers, for understanding, for a sense of calm, and it not be God at the very least, then you must question yourself. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean? Because quotes can be straightforward, they can be complex. I suppose, in the best way possible, to explain what that quote means, or additionally supplied, for again a lack of a better term, quote means, to me it means, if you cannot look to God for the answers which you seek, right? For a calmness, for an understanding, for a beneficial, positive, calming way of alleviation of, anger, sadness, or whatever negative feeling you may have, then really do really do start questioning yourself on the surface level when you get upset. Why were you upset? Did you do something that led to this situation, or is it reasonable? The most complex problem is not math. It is not the universe. No, it is yourself, because every single fucking mind that could have ever walked the planet, ever been on the moon, ever had any sort of achievement that was once thought impossible, improbable, or astonishing, astronomical, they are not going to have all of the answers the same way that you and I and anyone else are not going to. And so, with that in mind, ask yourself, reason with yourself, truly, why are you upset? And is it rational? More than that, again, if not for God, if you do not look to God for answers, if you do not seek Him out for better things, then ask yourself what you need to do to achieve better things. Ask yourself more than that, deeper than that, delving into the very specifics of it when you think you're ready, or rather, I suppose if you know you're ready. Ask yourself, or chase the understanding of the problem. Because much like math and complex issues and problems, there is always a process. And inside that process is a key. Maybe not a key to the answer, the specific solution, but the gate to, or map to, gaining that key for the solution. Understand. Because if you cannot understand, then you cannot solve. Understand more than just understanding. Understand why. Because if you can understand why, you can understand how. And if you can understand how, then you can understand perhaps when, right? Always, or rather more frequently, I'm talking about why, referencing it. I call it the root of problems. of gaining more generalized yet still accurate ways to getting solutions. And I've been asking myself why. Why am I so upset? Why can't I progress in Siege? Why can't I push out chapters in fan fiction, in new advances in my life, new chapters of my life? Why can't I push myself in music? Why? Why? Always a repetitive fucking question. And it's sometimes why is not going to get you the answer. And sometimes it's a combination of why, when, and how, and a bunch of other things. But all to say, you are not going to get the answer most times to anything, most things, if you do not take that leap first, or you do not attempt to fail again. Because without failure, there is no achievement. Very simplified, but philosophically, it's, I would say, pretty deep. Is this an update? Is it me just airing out my fucking thoughts in some sort of deep, emotive, or Angus? I don't even know. I don't even like fully know the definition of Angus, by the way. But regardless, is this like a personal little voice diary? Is it commentary? Is it? Why am I doing this? I felt obligated to. I felt like I needed to, and not for myself, but perhaps for others who feel like it's how I feel, or for others who maybe don't feel like how I feel, but want that boost of positivity, that emotion, or just want to take something from someone else's personal experience in life objectively, or just learn in general as a whole from someone who's young yet who has lost and gone through quite a bit. And so, yeah, I suppose this can serve as commentary, personal voice recording, voice diary, um, and a sense of I don't want to say moral teaching because it's little. I don't know whether to say a little less, a little more than that, but it's deeper than that. But yeah, I felt the obligation, or I felt obligated to create this, and I know I'm gonna look back on this as I have done with other videos of me talking about positivity, about priorities. I know I'm gonna look back on this at some point. Now the question is whether or not I'm going to continue to believe what I've said, whether it's going to shift ever so slightly to be what I would then deem in the future more accurate, whether it might be less accurate to me in the future. Well, the world's going to go by, and, as I said outside, if in the army, the opposing soldier is not going to wait for you to get the fuck up and run. He's going to shoot. Much like the world isn't going to wait for you to be ready. Because life's unfair. And sometimes, life being unfair is a good thing, and it can teach you discipline. Or it can back you into a corner of unhealthy bitterness or conflicting emotions. I suppose that's all.